Hey, what's good, y'all? It's Stinger, fresh out of the sewers. Shout out to Remy. And today, I'm going to be showing each and every one of you how you can make some Quadeca scrapyard type beats. And the beat that we're going to be going over today sounds a little something like this. So there's going to be a lot to cover in terms of this beat, but I'm going to try to break it down piece by piece to try to make it as easy to digest as possible. But without any further ado, the first thing that we're going to go over is the melody. And one essential component to these kind of beats, as well as his earlier style, like I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, is going to be guitar. Now, the guitar in this beat is recorded live by me, so I'm going to be covering some things that you can do when recording your live guitars to make them sound like Scrapyard. But if you don't have a guitar or don't know how to play the guitar, you could always just get acoustic guitar samples from Splice or Looperman, or if you want, you could download the guitar sample that I used in this beat, which is going to be in the description. But yeah, here's some tips in recording your live guitars. One thing I heavily recommend doing is double tracking your guitars, meaning record 2 takes of the exact same melody. And what we're going to do with those takes is we're going to pan one of them 75% to the left, and then pan the other one 75% to the right. A very common tactic when it comes to double tracking is panning them 100% left and 100% right. And this is just to avoid any phasing issues. But by making them so that they're not 100% left and right, it creates a really unique chorus sound in our melody. Now, one alternative to double tracking to get that chorus effect is going to be Cymatic's Origin. And this is honestly perfect for getting that vintage chorus sound. But yeah, since I recorded this guitar live and you could just find samples online, there isn't really much to go over in terms of the main guitar melody. But regardless, this is what our guitar melody sounds like. Now, one advantage to recording your guitars live and a limitation to using samples is that you can change your guitar melody throughout the beat to match the energy of that section. So in the intro, I have more of a calm guitar melody. And then for our bridge, I recorded in this strummed guitar pattern. And that's pretty much all there is in terms of the guitar melody, aside from the shoegaze portion that we're going to go over later. So with that being said, let's go over the next portion of our melody. And when making these kind of beats, you want to incorporate some kind of ambient melodic components. While just the guitar is nice on its own, incorporating other things can add dimension to your beats, as well as add some variation sonically. That way it's not just guitars throughout the entire beat. And for this, I decided to pull up Omnisphere with the Arctic Signal 1 preset, and I have this playing the fifths of our root note of our guitar melody. And the way you find out the fifths of your root note is you take your original root note and put it up by 7 semitones. And boom, there's your fifths. So this is what that sounds like. And that's pretty much all there is in terms of the melody. So with that being said, let's go over the next portion of this beat, being the drums. And for scrapyard type beats and Quadeca beats in general, sound selection is key. You want your sounds to be very, very unique. The first thing that I threw down is a bass, just playing a pretty basic rhythm. After that, I threw down a kick pattern that doesn't exactly follow the bass. This contrast just makes our drums a little bit more interesting rhythmically. After that, I threw down this sick white noise type of snare. And then after that, I just threw down this hi-hat playing eighth notes and have the velocity varied, as well as some pitch variation towards the end of the pattern. As well as that, I have Pancake 2 to provide some stereo separation, as well as Phase Mistress to make the hats a little bit more interesting. After that, I threw down the super industrial sounding white noise open hat. As well as this live open hat and this crash. Now for these kind of beats, it's a pretty good idea to incorporate a mix of synthetic drums and live drums. This just gives your drums a lot more character and also mixes in with those like folksy aspects of scrapyard type beats. And the final portion of the drums, and my favorite portion of the drums, is gonna be these various clicks from Omnisphere. And I just have this playing a 16th note arpeggio to contrast with the rhythm of the 8th note hi-hat. So with that being said, this is what all of those components of the drum sound like all together. As you can tell, we have some super unique and groovy drums, which is exactly what we want to go for with these kind of beats. Another thing that I recommend with your drums is to play around with the swing. Now, I just have the swing at 27%, so it's pretty subtle, but it does assist in providing a little bit more groove in your drums. All right, so now we've got the two basic aspects of our beat, the melody and the drums. But now let's go over some additional stuff like ambience and sound effects. One thing I did with this beat is I scattered just a bunch of random sound effects throughout the beat, and I have them on a track with a huge reverb. So this is what one of those random effects sounds like. Now, it's something that's super subtle, but yet again, this is something that gives our beat a little bit more character. Introducing things like this here and there can assist with removing some dead space within your beats. And on top of that, I have things like whooshes and risers to transition to separate parts of the beat. And now the final piece of ambience, and what I think is the most important, is going to be organic life ambience. Now, this is just hailing from the Cymatics Life Kit, and it's just a recording of a city park. But I have that playing during that calm intro, just to give the beat a bit more character and make it more interesting. Throwing in little things like these reverbed effects and transition sounds and organic life ambience is something that's not entirely present and noticeable, but are really cool little additions to make your beats more interesting. And now I've been saving this, but let's finally go over the Shoegaze outro. The first thing that I threw down is yet again double-tracked guitars. And now I didn't have my electric guitar with me at the time, so I had to make do with my acoustic. And to get the sound that you heard from the preview, I threw down a couple effects. First of which is going to be Valhalla Supermassive, which is drowning our guitars in reverb. And this is perfect for achieving that signature shoegaze sound. Next, to act as an amp of sorts, I threw down a saturator being FabFilter Saturn, and I have it on the Back in the Day preset. So without those effects, this is what our guitar sounds like. And with those effects, this is what they sound like. As well as that, I threw down this counter melody, and there are only a couple noticeable effects on that. The first of which being an amp from Archetype Gojira, and the second of which being this delay bank. So this is what that sounds like. And then aside from the guitar in this portion of the beat, I also threw down some super heavy drums from Addictive Drums. And I recommend drawing in the patterns yourself, because when you draw in your own patterns, you could draw in what matches the groove of your melody. Like the pre-built grooves in Addictive Drums are great, but they can contrast pretty heavily with your melody if the groove doesn't align. So that being said, this is what those drums sound like. now I do want to cover one more thing in terms of this portion, and that is going to be the automation of that fab filter Saturn. Obviously, throughout the beat, I have the mix level of that saturator at 0, but to lead up into the shoegaze portion, I do a swell with this saturation to kind of act as a riser. And this is great for building up the energy leading into that portion. So with that being said, this is what that hook leading into the shoegaze portion sounds like. Alright, so with all of that being said, that's going to pretty much cover how to make a Quadeca scrapyard type beat. Now, just to recap some key components, you're going to want some kind of acoustic guitar sample, ambient melodies, creative drums with unique drum patterns, as well as some ambience and effects throughout your beat, and if you so please, a huge sounding shoegaze portion. I hope each and every one of you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please throw them down in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them. Also, consider checking out my Patreon, where I post the FLPs to all of my beats in all of my videos, including this one. That way, if you wanted to study the mixing, the mastering, the arrangement, all that kind of stuff, it's right at your fingertips. And finally, consider subscribing, as I post one tutorial a week and one sound kit per month. Other than that, it's gonna be it. Peace.